There's a new sci-fi movie in theaters now. Is it guaranteed to hit the mark, or is it a true Hail Mary? Let's find out.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Once more unto the bridge, dear friends.
Again and again until we're both dead.
There's only like 12 stories. They change around little details, but they're all pretty much the same.
Deja vu. Something very familiar about it.
Hello, welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews and connections of mine. Project Hail Mary is the latest film from directors Lord and Miller, and it stars Ryan Gosling as Dr. Ryland Grace, a scientist who is put on a mission to head out into deep space because there's some kind of alien life form that is eating the sun, and our only hope for survival is to go to this other star, which doesn't seem to be having this problem. And when he encounters a non-terrestrial life form, they must work together to solve this problem. Now, this video review will contain spoilers of Project Hail Mary. I'll be doing my spoiler-free thoughts first and foremost, though, so just so you know, there will be some spoilers later on in this review. So first things first, let's get into some spoiler-free talk on Project Hail Mary. Is this worth seeing in theaters? Is this a good movie? Is this a good adaptation of the book? Well, I can't answer that last question because I've never read the book. However, as far as a theater experience goes, this was a extraordinary theater experience because not only is this one of those rare, seemingly rare movies nowadays where you're in a filled theater, which in my neck of the woods seems to be happening less and less these days, but it's a masterpiece to see on the screen because the visuals in this movie, oh my gosh, I regret not seeing this in IMAX because, the visuals in this are incredible. And these are the kind of shots where you are not bored by a second of any of the visual extravaganza going on in those moments. And not to say that they are intercut too much with the character, the dialogue portion, but when they do happen, they are extraordinary. And you don't. The best part about it is you're not waiting through bad dialogue or bad character developments to go from great visual to great visual because the character points are amazing too. And that's pretty much all down to Ryan Gosling because he is selling this role. He does a great job of being, kind of kooky, but he can also be very serious at times. This is the kind of movie where it can be very easy to get the balance between comedy and drama off. And while there is a lot of comedy in this, there's some great comedic beats, especially banter between our human hero with Ryan Gosling and our extraterrestrial. They are, they play well for each other, but they also do great drama together. And, that's really what makes this movie work. And on top of that, this movie is portrayed as, we're going through in time, but we also have flashback sequences in here. The flashbacks aren't bad either. However, they may not be the best scenes in the movie, I don't think, but they don't feel like the way this movie is structured, and the way these characters interact with one another, it doesn't feel like, oh man, another flashback. We got to sit through this until we get to the next, get back to what we really care about. No, it is entirely telling the story of this character and how he got to this point. And, with a man who's pretty much literally the weight of the world on his shoulders. And, working through the inner turmoil of that. And yes, there is some comedic beats on that, but really overall, I would say this, this does not feel like a long movie at all. I was not bored by a second of it. I don't think you will be either. And really, aside from the amazing CGI visuals of these planets and the circumstances that go on, I also gotta give great credit to the puppeteers on the extraterrestrial. I'm trying to be somewhat vague because yes, um the marketing materials did kind of mention the fact that there is an extraterrestrial in this, and if you read the book, obviously you know that. But if you haven't read the book or you haven't seen too much of the marketing materials, I don't want to give too much away during the spoiler-free section. But this creature, there's a lot of, I believe, it looked like there was a lot of practical effects in there. I'm sure there was a lot of CGI stuff going on for a lot of the scenes, but when there's a lot of practical elements in there as well, it looks great. And it's great to see this kind of puppetry in movies nowadays where, because there was a great deal of time where it's like, who needs a puppet now? It's all going to be CGI. It's cheaper to do that anyway. No one's going to care. Well, I think the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way, and it definitely shows in this. So if you're looking forward to seeing stuff like that, I think you're going to get a lot to enjoy on this one. Really, my only criticisms about this movie is that there are occasionally, I'd say maybe one or two times where, like I said, it's very easy to get the balance between comedy and drama wrong in this. And for the most part, this movie does it very well. There are a couple instances, I think, where the comedy beats maybe didn't land, maybe not didn't land per se as far as like, they were unfunny. Rather, the cadence, the timing was just a little bit off, and it felt like maybe they were dragging on just a tiny bit too long. Maybe that was just me, but there were very few moments like that. So I would say this is a great film, maybe the first great film of 2026. I've seen that headline around, and they may be right on this one. And I'm going to say they're probably right so far this year. So if I was going to give Project Hail Mary a letter grade, this one definitely lands as an A+. As far as A pluses go, I'd say, if you're grading this on a 100-point scale, it's probably maybe a 95 out of 100. There are a couple, like I said, there are a couple of minor tonal things in the middle that ding it just a little bit, but still fantastic work. Definitely one to check out in a theater. Check it out multiple times if you like. Check it out in a regular theater. Check it out in an IMAX. This is definitely a recommendation for me. However, if I was going to rate this movie on the scale of unoriginality, I would say this lands on less than original, meaning you've seen it before, but it could be worse. And we're going to get into why that is right now, because now we've gone through the spoiler-free sections of the movie. Now let's get into some spoiler talk as certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. So this is pretty much the epitome of what I say with this channel, is that there's nothing new under the sun. They're going to repeat some tropes over and over. It's just a matter of the mix. And the nice thing about this movie is the way it's presented, especially with Ryan Gosling's charm and the way the script's written. You don't care so much that you've seen this set up before, where you have a lone astronaut going onto an unknown territory and he has to, fly by the seat of his pants to survive and to solve the problems. And like I said, never read the book that this is based on, but I do know the author, Andy Weir, also wrote The Martian, and it's no coincidence that this feels an awful lot like The Martian in space. I know it's kind of a weird way to phrase that, but same kind of setup as The Martian is, where you have one person on on an unfamiliar environment. They're stuck within their habitat. They can't go outside too much or else they'll die, and trying to solve the problems and figure out a way to get home. Those, it's not a large stretch of the imagination to say, hey, the same author wrote both those books and he repeats the same kind of story beats again. But The Martian was also a very good movie, so it stands to reason that they did a pretty good job here. And also the other kind of story trope that we've seen before in a couple of different ways is the alien learning to communicate with the aliens approach. And the couple examples that I can think of off the top of my head were there's a couple great, one great and one sort of ripoff of the great episode of meeting Star Trek Next Generation's episode Darmok, where Picard has to figure out how to communicate with Dathan and the Star Trek Enterprise episode Dawn, where Commander Trip Tucker is placed in a very similar situation and has to basically learn how to communicate, learn this alien's language in order to survive and get out of there. But another more recent example of that, and the way, modern sci-fi, I'll say, portrays this makes me think a lot of Arrival. And while the particulars are different, of course, the progression that we see where, you start with, mathematics, you start with the simple hand gestures. Once you figure out a basic vocabulary, you build, all right, well, here's 1, 2, 3, this is me, this is you. And then eventually, you're down to like a text interface. All right, an automatic translate, so to speak, where it's like, oh, the alien speaks, and then, it shows up on the screen. Of course, in this case, you have the voice element as well. This is, we've seen this before, like I said, but that doesn't make it bad that they repeat these tropes. Again, the way the movie presents this, you don't necessarily care about what is being repeated because it's doing it so well, I think. And really, the only other thing that I kind of wanted to touch on with this in the spoiler section is with the flashbacks. Maybe it's explained better in the books. Maybe there was a line of dialogue that I missed somewhere in here, but the whole point of this story is, who is Ryan Gosling's character, Dr. Grace? Who is he deep down? And it's like, does he have what it takes to save humanity? And by the final flashback, we see, no, he's a coward. He doesn't want to be forced into the mission where it's basically a suicide mission. And the doctor's like, all right, well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to do this to you. We're gonna put you in a coma early, and then you're going to do that. Which I don't know if anyone else noted it, but how lucky is it at that point where he says throughout the movie, oh, I don't remember how I got here. My memory's blank on that point. How lucky is it that he forgot exactly the circumstances of him making it onto the Hail Mary? Because, if he woke up with the knowledge that, oh yeah, they forced me to go this and it basically end my life in order to save humanity, and I was having severe doubts as to whether I can do it, I'd be kind of upset about that. But maybe they're gloss over the fact that because, yes, he is, he's able to do it deep down. He's a good guy and wants to do the right thing. But, I don't know, that struck me as a little, a lucky break that is not well explained in the script. Maybe it's better explained in the book, but that struck me as odd. And also, it wasn't explicitly stated in this. Maybe it's explicitly stated in the book, but the fact that the ship's name is Hail Mary, and the only living person on the ship left is Grace, is literally a Hail Mary full of grace. I'm sure that was done on purpose. But, like I said, great movie. I very much enjoyed it. What did you think of Project Hail Mary? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree? Disagree? Did I miss something? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my other movie review, which comes out right around this time, which is for Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. They released in this same weekend, so I'm getting my reviews out roughly the same time, so look forward to that. And if you like this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially subscribe. I would very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.